Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're going over a few more changes that we are seeing with the current format. We had the Supreme Darkness sneak peek this past weekend, but as always we are going to wait until the set is officially out and things have cooled down before we talk about the prices from the new set, since all of those prices are definitely going to be super inflated right now. In the meantime, there are just a few random things here and there that you guys should definitely be aware of, as they are things that have the potential to come up at your locals, and people might either be looking to pick up or offload these cards, and you'll want to know what you should be doing. Let's get started. Kicking things off, let's take a look at Bisal Druid's Worm. So this card is one of the most important cards in the current competitive format. It is extremely strong. As a Bisal, you can banish a light or dark monster from the graveyard to special summon it, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can send an opponent's special summoned monster to the graveyard as well. So naturally, this card is really strong against the Fiendsmith engine, which is something that both Malice and Yugioh players are known to be using. In pure Malice, this card is a solid extender as well, since you can banish your Malice monsters and summon them back so that you can continue comboing off. And finally, this card is really important since it can break through Detonator as long as you've burned through your opponent's Yugioh Cross, since it bypasses Detonator's protection from destruction. That said, if you are playing competitively right now, this is definitely something that you're going to be familiar with. Unfortunately, Druid's Worm has just 2 different printings, and it has actually been relatively expensive ever since Magnamut was limited to 1, since a lot of people are choosing to now play the 1 Magnamut, and then anywhere from 1 to 3 copies of Druid's Worm. These things were anywhere from $10 to $15 before, but they've been trending up over the last few months and are now sitting between the $20 to $25 range for either the super or secret rare version of the card. Honestly, with only those 2 printings, I feel like this is definitely something that you will want to move your extra copies of. We should absolutely expect this card to be reprinted in the core set of Quarter Century Stampede, which will likely bring its price crashing way down. Up next, we have an extremely random one. It's powered in Zectron. Now, this card isn't an Inzektor monster, which I don't think even matters since I don't think there's even an Inzektor tuner monster. This card is a generic level 6 synchro machine monster, and it's currently trending upwards because of the Crystron strategy. The Crystron deck locks you into machines, so this card is naturally one of the options that you can go into. Its effect is pretty simple, activating on summon to prevent this card from being destroyed by battle or card effect, as well as stopping you from taking any damage for the rest of the turn. So naturally, this card I don't think is game-changing or anything, but I think it might be something to consider if you are playing the Crystron deck, since you could potentially make this card and just survive an opponent's big push altogether, and give yourself a chance to fight back on the following turn. This card is honestly a pretty forgotten one. I don't think it's ever been meta relevant before, so it has just 1 printing as a super rare from Legacy of the Valiant. I think this card was basically bulk before. It's now anywhere from $6 to $10 on TCG Player, as there are very few listings of it available, but also not that many sold listings at a higher price point either. Personally, I don't think Crystron is that strong, and even if they are somewhat good, I don't think that this is something that they would prioritize playing. I would definitely look to offload your copies of this card if you can find someone who's actually looking for them. Alright, so another random one here, we have Cyber Dragon Nova. This card is another one that's been trending because of the Crystron deck. It's arguably a bit more important though. So Crystrons have a card that is able to summon out 2 Crystrons from your deck. One of the deck's main end board plays is to use 2 level 5s to make Cyber Dragon Nova, and then go into Cyber Dragon Infinity. This is of course a pretty strong Omni Negate, as it can boost its attack points and absorb an opponent's monster as well. So really, Cyber Dragon Nova is an important card, but it's just a bridge piece that helps you get there. One cool thing though is that if your opponent chooses to nib you while Nova is out, Nova actually lets you summon a Machine Fusion from your extra deck, so you can bring out Invoked Mechabo, which is really cool. Anyways, Cyber Dragon Nova has a few different printings. It was originally an ultra rare from the Cyber Dragon structure deck. Those versions are around $7 to $8 right now. It was then an OTS Tournament Pack Super, and I believe those copies are anywhere from $3 to $5. Aside from that, it just has a couple of common printings. However, those are still under $1 each, and that's definitely the version that I would recommend for you guys to go to pick up if you are interested in playing Crystrons. The card is literally only ever going to be on the field for like 10 seconds, so I don't think it's really that important of a card to go and bling out. Just play with the commons and get some free value out of those holo versions if you can. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MSTmerch.com. Now, over at MSTmerch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. Okay, so I don't know about this one. Apparently it's a thing. We have Arcana Force EX, the Dark Ruler. So the Arcana Force cards got some cool new support in Supreme Darkness, and they're definitely something. To be fair, the archetype is based around coin flips, and unless you're playing a Misty deck in Pokemon Pocket, you probably aren't going to get very far on something that's so luck-based. However, the Arcana Force cards try to do as much with the mechanic as possible, and I could definitely see this being a fun deck to bring to locals, especially if you are a fan of the Arcana Force deck from the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. Most of the cards that you use are from the new set, but Dark Ruler is one of the older cards. On the field, it can either attack twice with its 4,000 attack points, or it can destroy all other cards on the field. Really, I think you just want this card for its ability to potentially attack for 8,000 damage on its own, especially if you can manipulate your coin flips with Light Barrier. Now, this card only has a couple of different printings. Both of them are really weird. It was originally a secret rare in Light of Destruction, so those original ones are up at anywhere from $20 to $40, depending on if the card is first edition or unlimited printing. We did also have that Light of Destruction reprint box set. I feel like those weren't cracked open enough to really impact the card's price. Dark Ruler's only other printing was in the Star Pack from 2013, and that's another thing that no one really opened. So even though it only has two different rarities in the Common and Star Foil, you're looking at having to pay $10 each just to own a copy of this card. Definitely a random one. I think that even if you do have older bulk, you probably don't have many of this card lying around, since Star Pack isn't really something that people just go and open for fun. This is something to be aware of though, just in case you happen to know that you have them. Alright, so this one is sort of old news from last week, but we'll cover it because we haven't talked about it yet. It's Vydos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction. Now, despite not being in the name, this card is a part of the Ashened archetype, a TCG exclusive theme that ended up doing absolutely nothing. Vydos is a card that we've talked about a few times before because it has potential as a side deck sort of hand trap. It has a quick effect to pop a card in the field spell zone, special summon this to your opponent's field, and then lets you search for or set from your deck an Ashened continuous trap. Now, the Ashened themselves most likely won't be meta relevant at all, but they did get an indirect support card coming in Alliance Insight that allows you to search for a level 5 or higher, light or dark, pyro or aqua monster. I think that neither the Ashened or Tistina deck has gotten a new card from a core OCG set recently, so this card has sort of revitalized some of that hope that something is coming. Vydos has just one printing from back in Phantom Nightmare, but with Ashened not being meta relevant at all, this card wasn't included in the 2024 tins. We had the secrets as low as about $10. Over the past week or so, they've doubled up in price to $20 each. Meanwhile, the QCRs have gone from around $40 up to around $50 to $70. Personally, I'm not really sold on the Ashen stuff at all. Even with the new card, I really want them to be good, but we've just had such horrible luck with TCG exclusive strategies, and we just got the Mitsurugi cards, which are looking like they'll be the first playable theme in a really long time. I'd rather just offload Vydos while it is seeing some hype and capture some of the extra value that way. The next card we have is a bit tamer. It's a Gladiator Beast Tamer Editor. Of course, this is a card for the Gladiator Beast deck, another theme that just got additional support in Supreme Darkness. This card requires you to contact fuse with 2 level 5 or higher GB monsters, but it's really cool because it can cheat out any GB fusion monster from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. This means that you can instantly have access to a spell trap negate in Heraklinos or a monster negate in Domitianus. Now, although GBs aren't exactly the most competitive strategy, I definitely think that they're a fun deck that a bunch of players are going to want to try out with the new support, especially if you did play Gladiator Beasts back in old formats. Maybe you're a fan of playing it in different Time Wizard formats. Anyways, we are bringing up Tamer Editor because it is trending upwards, though it's just slightly because GB isn't exactly the most meta-relevant strategy. This card has just one printing as a secret rare from the first Battles of Legend set, which is Light's Revenge, though it was pretty easy to pull back then and used to basically be viewed as bulk. This card was at around $2 or so. It's now up to $4 to $5 a piece. There should be a decent bit of demand from players that pull some of the new GB cards and want to put together the deck, so be sure to dig this card up out of your holo bulk and throw it into your trade binders. And finally, the last card we're talking about for today is Spellbound. So I remember when I first read this card, it seems really crazy, but it's actually a lot worse than you'd think. So you activate this card and then all monsters your opponent currently controls can't be tributed or used for an extra deck summon until the end of the turn. So the idea has always been that this is sort of like a dimensional barrier, but where you can block them from accessing the entire extra deck as opposed to just a specific type. Really, I think that there's just always been a better option than this card, and it never really seems like it's like the optimal side deck answer. Despite that, people keep on trying to hype this card up every few months, and we seem to have hit another wave of that now. Now, I don't really know where the intention to use it is. I personally think the most valid thing with Spellbound is if your opponent is going to do a lot of summoning on your turn, then this card is okay because it can be useful as your 6th card, but that's not really a thing in the current format, right? Aside from something like Crystron, I don't think anyone's really worried about that. I guess you could flip Spellbound if I go Ice and then summon Extra Sword and then I search the other one. You flip Spellbound and like, yeah, you can't use those two bodies to go into Moon or Exciton Knight, which is cool, but then they just have the other extender anyways and you don't really accomplish anything. Anyways, it's not like a huge price spike that we're seeing with Spellbound. The original secret rares from Darkwing Blast are around $5 right now, which is up from the $2 that they were at before. However, the Ultra reprints from the tins are still literally like 25 cents. If you guys really want, like, pick up a set of the Ultras just in case this card does end up seeing some sort of meta play and it becomes something a little bit more interesting. Definitely don't buy into the secret rares since this card will probably end up not doing anything crazy. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. Definitely some kind of random stuff. I know Supreme Darkness maybe isn't like the most meta impactful set, but there's definitely still some pretty interesting stuff that happens to be in the set. My Supreme Darkness sneak peek, I think I did pretty well. Like, I pulled a QCR of the cover card from the set, and then I pulled 2 secrets. I got the Tenyi Spirit and then like the Saint Azamina, neither of which are that great, but then I did get first in place after Swiss for one of the sneak tournaments that we had at my locals. So I did get the Supreme Darkness mat, but I ended up giving it to a friend who really wanted it. So I don't know, it was a pretty good event for me. But yeah guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.